What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Michelle Renee from IamMichelleRenee.com, and I am so elated to have Mr. David Jackson with me today. David, I am so honored just to have you on my platform and to share this space with you right now. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what you do, what your brand, all of those things. Give everybody the deets on who you are.
Okay, so I'm David Jackson. My artist name is DayVidya, which is just my name broken into two. And I'm from Muck City. I grew up in Royal Palm Beach and then spent most of my life in the Glades and in Pahokee and South Bay and Belle Glade, Florida. And I'm an artist. I would say that I'm a witness first. I love to consider myself a witness to others. Um, I am a writer. I'm a singer. I'm a creator. Um, I believe in love as liberation, and I'm trying my best to like be a healer through my music and through my words, my language. And I love Black people a lot. I love Black people a whole lot. So that is
Yes.
me.
Yes, we share that in common. Our love for Black people, Black culture, Black
Yes,
women,
yes,
all things Black. We just really, that's, I think, our biggest connecting point. And it's like, I see you and I see myself in so many ways because I'm an artist and all those different things. And the difference is, I feel like you discovered much earlier on the power in being your authentic self and really embracing the love that you have in you and sharing it the way that you know it's supposed to be honored and shared. And I absolutely love that. Tell everybody a little bit about like your journey to becoming who you are, David Ja, and just how you've birthed yourself really into this place, because I know who you're going to give most of the credit to and I can't wait for you to share that. But I want you to really just give us a little bit of how did you get to this place of just being authentically you, unapologetically you, and being able to say, you know what, I love Black people, I love my folks, I stand firm in that, and I'm gonna affirm them on every single opportunity possible.
yes. It's been a journey. I would say I experienced extreme privilege growing up. Like my household and my parents were very generous and they were very intentional with offering me a sense of self. And even the way that God, like I was offered a very expansive spirituality. Like when I was growing up, my mom would say something um, that stuck with me. I still carry it. And she was saying that the Bible, for example, the Bible was not God, period. It was God, dot, dot, dot. And that informs so much of my spirituality. Like I've never felt a cap on how I get to experience God and therefore experience people. And so I've always had the privilege of being, open. I've had an openness. And even when I went through, like, especially in my teen years, a lot of insecurity, um, deeply questioning myself and fearing myself, there was still a space that I held in my spirituality where I felt like I could be fully expressed and I'll be fully loved. And I would say my entire life has been a journey of learning, trying to learn how to love myself and accept myself and be myself. And you said something to me earlier about there's no other person you can be but yourself. And I think that's essentially the journey I've been on for years, is realizing there's nobody that I can perform, but there's one person that I can actually be and express, and that is myself. And so I would say my parents had a huge deal. My relationship to who I know God to be is fundamental. Like I have this experience with God as loving, as patient, as present with me, and that influences everything that I do. And I think a big part of my love for Black people comes from traveling a lot as a child and continuing that tradition as an adult. I've traveled around the world. I've traveled consistently. And one of the things that fascinates me is the way that Black people connect and relate across diaspora, and the way that we have somehow um, progressed and pushed forward through a lot of attempts at silencing us, destroying us, deterring us. We've somehow persevered into being expressed people. And that is fascinating to me. I believe that in order to love myself, I have to love Blackness because I'm a Black man. And I'm sure we'll talk more about my ideologies and everything around Black women. I have an absolute commitment to Black women. And it's something that informs everything that I do. And so I think I've just learned over time that everything that I've suffered through is actually offering me love. I've tried my best not to avoid suffering, because as I've suffered, I've expanded every time. Every time I've
Yes.
suffered, I've
Yes.
become more myself, and I've become more loving, and I've become more tender. And so I think I welcome suffering as much as I welcome loving. And that informs a lot of who I am.
I love that because I truly hold the belief that through suffering brings about evolution, and you're able to evolve to a different space from what you take from the suffering that you've experienced. And it took years to get that. I lost my dad when I was very, very early, very young, 9 years old. And the impact that it had on me could have truly triggered a different path in life. But every day I'm reflecting on things that I know would have changed and empowered me in a different way had he been present with me in the flesh. So I still carry him with me in the spirit. And I look at the things he imprinted upon my brothers and my sister because they had more time. I'm the youngest.
Yeah.
And I love the way the journey that you and your sister have taken. Your mom actually passed right before I moved to South Florida. And
Right.
so I think about before I even met you or Crystal, I'd already heard these amazing stories about your mother.
Yeah.
So her reputation had preceded her offspring. And so when I met you all, I felt like I met her, even
Yeah.
though I never had the pleasure.
Oh, that's
And
incredible.
it's such a powerful space to be in, to know that you're embodying the things that she instilled in you, right? So I think about that as far as, suffering, loving, evolution, growing, becoming, all of those things contribute to who you are and how you are. And I think it does lead into why you love Black women the way you do. Let's talk a little bit about that, because
Yeah.
of course, when I thought about bringing you on the platform, you literally were the first person I thought about because of your love and your steadfastness to, and your commitment to making sure that you honor Black women. Like, that didn't start last year. That didn't start a moment ago. Like, this is who you are. It's the essence of David. So tell us
Yes.
how you even arrived to that place. Like, why is this such a passion and so purposeful for you?
Well, that's a huge part of who I am, actually. I think a fundamental part of my presentation and my expression and my personality, I understand it is shaped deeply by femininity. I think
Right.
that's a part of, my uniqueness in my community and in the places that I've been to, is that I do not deny or refuse to acknowledge the feminine energy in my life, in me.
Right.
And that's because of Black women around me. I grew up with incredible Black men, but I would say what I internalized as a child was that the most expressed and the most compelled and the most honest and the most forthright people in my life were Black women consistently. And I had that in my mother, I had that in my sister. I had that in, also my older sister, who I came into deep relationship with later on. And my grandmother and I had just so many references of people who seemed to be expressed and alive. And they were almost consistently Black women. And
Mm-hmm.
so that helped me. Like I always say that when I internalize this idea of the spirit of God, I always imagine the spirit of God to be a Black woman. I always internalize that because the people who felt most expressed and most true were Black women in my life. And they helped me to comprehend and accept that certain elements of like my personality, um, being so influenced by the feminine, was not a negative thing, because my culture, our society can easily tell you, especially as a man, I think especially as Black men, that you need to almost to a degree fear femininity, and that you need
Yeah.
to avoid femininity, and that femininity is lacking, and that it is weak, and that it is without. But I understand femininity to be a sacred part of the divinity that who I believe God to be. And then also when I look at the people around me, women have been so courageous, so willing, so consistent, and holding together so many fabrics of our society. And so that's on a broader level. But on a deeper level, something that I realized over time was that I noticed, when I would listen to a lot of Black women in my life, in friendship, in family, that there was this unique nature. And this, for me, I believe this is a unique dynamic that Black women have in society. It is this experience where you almost know and you expect not to be understood and grasped by broader society, whether it's white people, whether
Yeah.
that's pop culture. You understand everybody's not going to understand us, so you just trust yourselves to express honestly, and
Yep.
you expect certain levels of relationship from each other. Like Black women know to hype each other up, to tell each other the truth, to challenge each other, to call each other in, but they don't expect that from almost anybody else
Mm-mm.
because it's not necessarily coming to you. And with that comes a genuine, authentic expression that we see pop culture, society bites on 10 years after y'all do something. Everybody starts doing it. 6 years after y'all create a style, everybody starts rocking that style. 7 months after you make a statement or a phrase, everybody starts using that phrase. But it comes because you don't expect acceptance, you don't expect being understood, you just offer it to each other. And witnessing that throughout my life, I was like, there's always something to learn from Black women. So I want to center Black women in my life. And I've become very radical over time with my politics and ideologies. I believe in Black liberation. I'm very adamant in speaking against white supremacy. And when
Absolutely.
I do that, it's not simply because, oh, white supremacy is bad. It's because I believe that Black liberation is revolution. And when I say that, it becomes much more pointed. And this is, I would say, the broader and the more specific point of the question on my ideology around Black women. I believe that if Black women are free, everybody's free.
It's
I
true.
believe that if Black women experience healing, everybody experiences healing. And I believe that because we live in a hierarchical society. We live in a society that sets up hierarchy. And so when we look at hierarchy based on race and gender, Black people experience the bottom of the totem pole with race, and women experience the bottom of the totem pole with gender. You have Black women who experience both.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm looking at a society where over time, over history, Black women have consistently found themselves at the bottom of a hierarchy. And a part of my radicalism and a part of my beliefs about revolution is in the scripture when it says the last will be first.
Listen.
So that informs my ideology around Black women. That understanding has helped me to learn and to commit to centering Black women in my life. And practically what that looks like is reading Black women, listening to Black women, trusting that when Black women say something about their experiences, that they're telling the truth,
Yes.
trusting their words, trusting their perspectives, supporting Black women in friendship, being a listener, not thinking I always have something to teach, but I actually have something to learn. um, Affirming Black women in my life, being a voice of affirmation, being a voice
Yes.
of encouragement, being a voice of and yeah, encouragement and affirmation is almost consistently what I try to do with Black women in my life. And then more recently, a commitment that I've been trying to make is to not only think of myself, which a lot of men tend to do, as someone who can help Black women come up, but actually coming under Black women. I think my position doesn't always look like standing alongside Black women, and it definitely doesn't always look like being in front of Black women and pulling them forward. I think a part of what I feel committed to is coming under Black women and lifting certain weight, because I believe that in revolution and the changes that we're seeing happen in our society, that a fundamental thing that I would love for Black women to hold and to have is rest, because our society does not offer Black women rest. Black women have to demand rest. I encourage any Black woman that hears me speak today or in this podcast, you know, choose rest, because it will not be given to you. It is something you have to take. That is
Oh
your
my
right.
gosh.
And so my position, I feel, is to come under and come behind Black women, and to be in a position where I'm of service. I believe that the greatest
Yes.
among us are servants. That is why I believe Black women will be first, because they have had to serve in a way that only, I would say, maybe Indigenous women have had to, you
Yeah.
know, but Black women specifically have had to serve in our society without any recompense. And I believe there's a shift happening. And so that is my ideology. I believe that Black women experiencing liberation is everybody being free. Black women experiencing healing is everybody experiencing healing. Black women experiencing abundance is everybody knowing abundance. And so I believe in Black women being lifted and supported, and I'm committed to that. That is my commitment. you know?
And you know what? Like, I can say that just watching you over the past few years, you have honored that commitment consistently. And I love that. I can say, when I see, there are people that when I see their name come on my timeline, I cringe. Men.
Yeah.
When I see your name, I already know that light is going to be shine. And I know that there's going to be an affirming word. And I live for that, because I'm just like, and I always say, that's what I needed, or thank you, a simple thank you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, when you don't hear that, and when you don't get that affirmation, it's more than hearing a person tell you that you're beautiful. Okay, thank you. But to hear a person tell you that you're powerful,
Yeah.
that you are deserving, that you are worthy, that you have something that hasn't even been tapped into yet,
Yeah.
that's affirming. So
Yes.
I listen to that, and I read it, and I see it, and then I see the interaction, and I love the sibling relationship that you and your sister have. Like, I
Absolutely.
love, love, love it, because it drives just being able to know that when you have a best friend, right? And you have this person that literally knows you inside out, has your back, but also is standing in the gap with you and saying, you know what? It's not enough for me to just love you and honor you. I'm here with you. Like,
Yeah.
I hear you, I see you, I feel you. There's so much power in that. So just having you as an ally for Black women is, I don't even have words to give thanks for it, or to say, you know, I appreciate that. But you just spoke to something that hit home really hard about rest. And I did not realize the degree to which Black women work themselves, myself included,
Yeah.
um, and don't take risks. But then I go back and I start to think about all of the lineage and all of the familiar relationships that I have with Black women myself, and how overworked they were. Even the ones who didn't work a traditional job worked nonstop, never
Absolutely.
taking the rest. Their
Yeah.
final rest was their rest. And I'm going, wow, this is a cycle that cannot continue on. Like, we burn ourselves out. We put ourselves in a position to literally have our light blown out because we're exhausted from working. And to know that we do have this language that we speak to one another, that is a unique language among Black women, because we do feel like that's the only group of people that understand.
Understand, comprehend, and even that for me is something that I try to remind myself, because as much as I stand in solidarity, as much as I come in a place of allyship, I also do not understand the level and the depth of experience that you have. I'm committed to standing alongside and to serving and to coming under and to coming behind. Um, but I understand that I can't comprehend the depth and the fullness of being a Black woman in this society. I understand that, you know, being a man in itself, separating apart from being a Black man or whatever, but being a man comes with a range of experiences and privileges that I just simply won't comprehend what it is to be a woman, let alone a Black woman in our society. And I think that understanding informs me and keeps me committed to like being an allyship, because I don't have to fully comprehend in order to serve. I don't.
Absolutely.
I don't
Absolutely.
have to fully understand in order to lend my life and lend my energy to your becoming and to your liberation. I just have to commit. I just have to choose it. And so that's something I'm committed to.
What is this something? Because this might sound like a crazy question. Is there, are there more of you? Because
I
we have
think
to want.
so. I think I think there are. I find that the few Black men that I know, specifically Black men that I know who have literally made the kind of commitment that I've made, that I personally have a relationship with, um, they tend to be at the margins of society. Usually they're queer, usually they're artists, um, usually they find themselves in a unique kind of suffering in the world, and that expands their compassion. And I'm not saying that most Black men aren't suffering. I think all Black men know a kind of suffering in our society that most people in the world don't. But there's a specific, when I see people making a specific commitment to Black women, it's usually Black women, it's usually Black queer people, and it's usually people who find themselves in a kind of, or people who are disabled, people who suffer exponentially seem to recognize and understand the commitment that could or should be made to Black women specifically. So I would say they're out there, but I would say they're not as common as they should be. But I think the times are changing. I think what we just witnessed over the last year with 2020, we're witnessing a flipping. I like to call it like it was this breath that was inevitable. It's like imagine somebody being underwater, held underwater for a long time, and they come up for their first breath. That breath is not going to be like, it's going to be, and that's what I feel like 2020 was.
Yes.
It was this inevitable deep breath in, or it was a deep breath out. And a part of that I do feel that came with 2020 is a rise in consciousness. And I think we're going to see more people committed to Black women. I think we're going to see more and more people who are willing to name and support and give their lives to a commitment to seeing Black women liberated. Like I actually know several people who understand, like I do, that where Black women experience liberation, we all do. Most of those people are Black women, but that is a conscious, a conscious mindset, and that is something that people are going forward with. Encourages me because I know I'm not alone in that pursuit. I know that Black women aren't solely alone. There are other people. But I think we are sometimes rarer in breed, but we're here,
I absolutely love that because that's one of the things that I wanted to kind of be a beacon and highlight on my platform is just understanding that Black women as a whole are a force to be reckoned with, but we have to first know that we're a force, right? So once we recognize that we're a force, then there's so much more that can be accomplished. So it's important for me to look at women on all spectrums. Everybody that I reach out to them like, hey, I love to feature you. They're like, why me? I'm like, why not you?
Why not?
Like,
why not?
Why not you? Like,
absolutely.
You all have something dope and amazing to offer the world, and you're already doing it. I just want to point out that you're doing it. So I think that's truly amazing. I'm so grateful for that space that you honor and just knowing that I've known that it's authentic. And so you just gave me a breath of fresh air. You just gave me that life and gasp that we needed. And I love that description that you gave because this is exactly like how it was. Like everybody was holding their breath and then we all
absolutely
were ready. So what's going to come after this breath is what's going to be really powerful. I want to take a second to talk about David the artist because you have such a beautiful melodic, oh my gosh, like you get the girls and I straight together with the vibe, with just who you are, with We Dream, like your words and the melodies and just everything comes together in perfection. And I don't typically say that when I talk about artistry because I'm a bit of a critic. I can be honest and say I'm a bit of a critic. But I listen and I'm just like, how did he do that? Or what made him do that? And it really enthralls me. So let's talk about you as an artist. When did you, I know you're still coming into your own as an artist because we always are. But when do you feel like you were able to truly be who you are as an artist?
I think coming through a culture of arts was fundamental. Like my parents both founded an organization called Street Beat Incorporated, and that was an arts program, a nonprofit that I grew up in my entire life. That started when I was 4. Both of my parents are musicians and artists, and of course my mother passed away 6 years ago. But before that, she was a very, very expressed choreographer and singer and writer and teacher. And my father is still here. And he's one of the best trumpet players you'll ever hear. And he's one of my favorite vocalists. Actually, he has top tier vibrato. I always tell people one of the best vibratos I've ever heard is my father's. So I grew up in art. I grew up in expression. I grew up in a community of creative and artful expression. And, just to give some history, the reason I really committed to singing was because I think I loved music because I was just around it. But I remember being 8 years old and going on a couple trips with Street Beat. And there's this woman who's a dear friend of mine. She's family to me. Her name is Moiro Conchella Poole.
Yes.
Also, native of the Muck. And when I was 8, she was 18 and she was singing and she was an incredible singer. And I remember thinking to myself one day, I have to marry her. I love Moiro. So if I'm going to marry Moiro, my thought was I have to learn how
I got to be a singer.
because she's a singer. So I remember one day looking at her. She was walking into her house. My family dropped her off, and I was like, I'm gonna marry her, and so I need to learn how to sing. So I started singing every day at the house. And I didn't let anybody hear it except like my parents and my siblings, but I would sing all day, every day. And then street beat, I was doing a lot of dancing or whatever. And then over time, like into my teen years, I started becoming a little more willing to sing in public. And I never had vocal training. I never had, formal training as a vocalist. But I just listen, like the people I listen to a lot of Donny Hathaway and India Ari and Fred Hammond and Yolanda Adams and Kim Burrell and the Clark sisters and, Usher and just a range of different vocalists who were very expressed and very mature, mature vocalists. And I learned to shape my ear around that. But I would say like choosing and becoming who I am as an artist has come with choosing myself. I spent years of my life from like, I would say 12, 13 on, just really afraid of myself because I was questioning my spirituality and my sexuality and my being in the world and what it looks like to be a human being and who is God? Where did God come from? All these questions that terrified me. And I thought they were unaskable questions, but they were just looping in my head. And so I went through a period of time where I was very, very reserved, very withheld with most people except for like 5 or 6 people in my life. But I went to FAMU, I went to HBCU, and let me tell you, it confronted me. And I had this experience with, like I went to a very, I won't be too wordy with my description of the school that I went to called Glades Day. I'll hold some of my language on it. But I went to this school and it was very traumatic for me around race and racism.
Yeah.
And I remember really feeling invisible at that school. But when I got to FAMU in the context of education, here I am. And I'm like, just thinking I'm a witness to other people. But all these people that I admire from a distance are like, hey, dude, I see you. And I was like, me? I was confused. I was like, you see me? What you mean? But I realized that I had a rightful place. Wherever I was, that I had a rightful place in that context. And so I started to become a little more confident. I started to become a little more expressed. I came into friendships. I came into a self-expression that really changed my life. And I mentioned FAMU because a life-changing moment happened there. And it was a spiritual experience, but I remember sitting down one day and thanking God for my life because I was amazed at how much my confidence had experienced and had expanded in my voice and all these things. And I was thanking God one day, and I remember hearing God respond to me like, David, why is it so hard for you to believe that I could trust you with, certain people and certain songs and certain ideas when I already trusted you with myself?
Whew.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait a minute, because I realized everything that I trust God with, God created. And somehow God trusts me with themselves. Like God is saying, I created all of this, but I choose to live in you. I trust you. And so I have this experience where God is telling me, I trust you more than you'll ever trust me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at this point, my entire life was about how much I trusted God. And God was like, well, actually, you'll never trust me as much as I trust you. So can you learn to trust yourself? And so that changed my life. I was 19 years old and I started walking different. I started talking different. I started trusting myself. I started learning to recognize intuition and discernment. And it literally, I've always carried that ever since. And it doesn't mean that my life is easy. It means that my life, it feels like it's harder. Because even when it's lonely, I have a commitment to being myself. Even when I know I'm going to be misunderstood, I'm going to be misnamed, I'm going to be misaligned, my character, I still have to commit to being myself. And so I think that has informed my artistry. Like so much of the music that I've ever put out, which is not a lot of music, but everything I've put out, the creative process was always improvisational. It was always spontaneous. It was always in the moment. I'm writing, and whatever first comes is going to be the lyric. Whatever first comes in melody is going to be the melody. And so a lot of the music that you've heard from me that you love was my first instinct, was my first idea. And that is something I've committed to. Not that I'm always going to write that way, but I welcome that. I welcome my first ideas. I don't dismiss my first ideas because I think my first ideas are actually telling me who I am in many ways. So that is my artistry. It is informed by a spirituality. It is informed by, always being somebody who's had a lot of questions. I used to think having questions was a problem.
Right, right,
And
right.
now I understand that having questions is a generosity. It comes from a place of kindness. It comes from a desire to be honest. When I ask questions, it's because I want to know the truth. It is not to
Yes.
overrule somebody or to make sure that I define somebody else. It is to discover the truth. And so I've learned to welcome questions. And I would say that's my artistry. It's being willing to ask questions.
I don't even know if you understand the amount of power that comes in that, because there is such a power in becoming and standing firmly in who you are. Because I too am a questioner, and that is met
Yes.
with a lot of resistance. But
Oh,
being a questioner has helped to shape who I am and my understanding, because all I ever seek is the truth. I just want to know. I live and operate from a place of very authentic transparency. So what you see is what you get. I don't hide who I am. I don't hide anything that, maybe uses judgment against me. And I always told people, even growing up, it was like, I've always been the person to tell you everything about me. And the reason I used to do it as a form of self-defense, because if I tell you about me, you can't tell other people about me,
yeah,
and you can't
yeah,
tell me about me.
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So, but now as I've grown older and just really grown into who I am and really loving me, no, I have to be honest and transparent with you, because that's the only thing I know to do. I
Yes.
can't make it up. I can't give you anything other than the very essence of who I am. So I had to learn the harsh reality of that everybody doesn't receive that. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That is not your soul family. The
Yes.
people who receive you as you are your soul family.
Yes.
And it's instant. It's an instant connection. I remember, I think my
Mhm.
first time meeting you was at the dance studio.
I believe
And
so. Yeah.
I walked past you and I felt your air, right?
Mhm.
And I doubled back, and I think I might have asked you, because I'd seen you at church, but I hadn't interacted with you. I asked you, I was like, did you sing this? Are you the person singing this song? And you were like, yeah. I said, do you have the CD? You were like, yeah. I said, can I get one? You were like, yeah. And then we talked about it, and after I listened to it, and we had another, I was like, I said, you have got something really special. I hope that you never let anybody not let you have that. And I love you. And you were like, I love you too. I was like, no, I really love you. You're like, I
Yeah.
love you too. I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure you know that. But
And
it
that is
wasn't an
so
awkward thing.
no, because let me tell you, and this is something, it's so amazing. Everything you just said is reminding me of something that I think is so great to share in this conversation. But I've always been somebody who's been inclined to love. Like I used to think something was wrong with me. Like that was actually a part of, like, I didn't sleep well as a teenager because the amount of love that I would just feel for people, strangers, people I already knew, I thought maybe this is not healthy. I thought it was wrong to have the amount of love that I had in my body and in my heart for people. And I remember asking my mom one day about it. And, between my parents' heritage, both of them are Jamaican and Black. I identify as Black, but we also, further back in our lineage, we have a lot of different heritages and cultures represented. And I remember my mom saying the reason you feel so much love for everyone you cross is because so much of these people are in your bloodline. There's Asia is in your bloodline, and Cuba, is in your bloodline,
Yep.
and Europe is somewhere down far in your bloodline. It's like all these people are represented in my bloodline, in your bone, in your marrow, and it helped me to understand, like, this connection I feel to most people is a beautiful thing. It's not a problem. But what I've learned over time is that I believe that love is free. I believe that there's an abundance of love. I feel like there is an endless well of love. I would call that God. Somebody else would call it the universe. Somebody else would just call it maybe love, simply. I believe that love is an endless resource. And in my life, I would tend to internalize this idea that in order, whoever I love, I have to trust and I have to respect. But what I've realized over time is that love is a free gift in my life, but trust is earned.
That's right.
and respect is earned. And so, and what we were saying was like, you're telling me that you love me before we had, relationship wasn't foreign to me because I feel deep love for people that I cross every day. So I was like, oh, I love you too. Believe me, like I do.
And you said that, you were like, believe me, I really do. And I was like,
Oh yes,
I looked at you and I said, I do believe it. Like, I was like, I feel you.
yes, and that's
It's a
something that
strange feeling because I've grown up with this love, and even though I've been characterized as mean and all these other things, I'm like, that's not who I am. Like, I'm just love. Like, I love, and I love hard, and I love very openly. So
same.
a friend and I were talking last night about people wanting to put a cap on how much love you get. Like, you only get a certain amount. You got to use it wisely, but that's not how it works. Like, love is
in my life, love is just, it's a constant, it's an overflow. And I had to learn to balance that by realizing that everybody that I feel love for, I cannot be in a trusting relationship with.
Yes.
Trust is earned. Trust comes from connection. Trust comes from experience and exchange.
And transparency.
And respect comes from, like, for example, and this may shock a lot of people when you first hear it, but for example, I have love for somebody like Donald Trump. And that's not, I don't respect Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't trust, I want to trust Donald Trump with a penny.
Right.
And Donald Trump doesn't have an ounce of my respect, but I do recognize that he was a human being created by the same source that created me. And I realized that the reason this man acts a fool is because he's hurting.
Yep.
That's why he's hurt, he's suffering, he's afraid. And he's 70-some years old, but he's still a little kid who was abandoned and who was never able to be accepted by his parents. So he's still performing that. So I have the ability to say, I know that God, the creator, loves him. So I have an ounce of love. I have an experience, but I can actually have love for this person. I have love for a lot of people I could call my enemies. Right. But he doesn't have my trust. Right. Trusting Donald Trump would be stupid.
Yeah, or respect.
Respecting Donald Trump would be ignorant of me. But I can understand that. So there's a lot of people that I've experienced who I hold love for, but realizing I don't have to give you my trust. I don't have to give you my respect. That is earned. And I say that because you over time have earned my respect. You have earned my trust because I watched the way that you empower and encourage and affirm the people that cross your path. I've never seen you offer a cold shoulder to somebody. I've never seen that. I've always seen a welcoming nature. I've always seen the generosity of spirit. I've always seen a willingness to share and exchange. And that is why I'm on your call right now, because I absolutely understand and I recognize that comes from a place of, like you said, transparency and a commitment to transparency. And I appreciate that. I really respect that.
Like, I'm so grateful for that. And I love the example that you use, because I tell people all the time that I can love you and not rock with you.
Yeah.
Because I love you because you are the essence of God. You were created in his image too. Yeah. Now, what you've chosen to do with that image is your choice, because we've all been given free will. But I love that you honor that space that, hey, you are human. And we talk a lot. I talk a lot with my girls, with my tribe and everything, about just what it looks like to be in a place of healing. I can honestly say that if I didn't spend time working actively to be healed, that I wouldn't feel comfortable expressing my love for people and being able to be a vessel to do anything, because I would still be hurting. So I think that's so powerful. I got to move on because I will have you here all day long.
I get it. We listen.
So my question is, when you hear the term Black boy joy, what is it sparking you?
When I hear Black boy joy, what I first go to is permission to be expressed, permission to be. I think we live in a society that expects everybody to do something, do this, establish this. But it's rare that we are giving the encouragement and the affirmation and permission to express. I believe that expression is an extension of being. Yes. And being, to me, is about who you are. It's not about what you do, how you do it. It is about who you are at your core. Before anything you do, who you are is being. You're a being. Yes. I remember hearing somebody say, you're not a human doing, you're a human being. And yes. It is that. And so when I think of Black boy joy, and this is imaginative, this is something that I actually hold for the future when I dream about the future, for myself, for Black men, for Black children, Black boys. What I think is revolution for me looks like Black men being realized, Black men having permission to discover themselves.
Permission
Not,
to be happy too, right?
yes, because the thing is, a lot of times, a lot of men, and this is across races, a lot of men learn how to perform a certain kind of masculinity that is socially accepted. But a lot of men don't have permission or feel permission to discover themselves, who they truly are without a performance. And I like to say, gender roles are just that, roles. They are performances. Mm-hmm. And true masculinity or true femininity, it cannot be defined by somebody else for you. Like, I'm in a state in my life right now where no one can define me for me. No one can define. For a long time, people defined me. People told me who I needed to be, how I needed to look, how I needed to express myself. And I realized, and this is literally a new realization, this is like the last 6 months, where I'm like, I don't have any obligation to defining myself as much as I have an obligation to expressing myself. Before I need to define it and determine exactly what it is, I want to express. And when I think about Black boy joy, that feels like that commitment. It's a commitment to being expressed. Because the truth is, happiness, unhappiness, sorrow, joy, all these things, they're all possible inside, sorrow and let's say redemption. All of these things are possible within joy. Like I feel like I know joy. And one of the things a friend asked me the other day, I was in Seattle and my friend was like, what are three things you want this year? And I said, happiness, because I know joy. Joy comes in suffering. Joy comes from accepting your life. Joy comes from saying, even though I've been through this, even though this hurts, I'm still here. But happiness, it comes in moments. It's not always going to be, nobody's ever going to always be happy.
No, it's not even possible.
When moments of happiness come, I want to welcome it. And I feel like there are so many Black men who deserve a chance at happiness. I think more Black men than we realize actually know joy. We know what it is to still make each other laugh, even though we're suffering. We know what it is to provide and to love someone, even though we don't experience certain levels of love and acceptance from society. That is joy. And I think Black men we have a very unique inclination. Some of the funniest people in the planet are Black men consistently.
Consistently, yes.
Consistently. And that's not just, ignorance. You have to be wise to make somebody laugh. You got to be smart.
And inclined.
Absolutely. And so I think that Black boy joy, to make it a little shorter, I think Black boy joy is permission for Black boys, Black men to be expressed, to be fully human. That is joy to me, is that I get to be expressed and I get to be human and I get to be free.
I really hope that it becomes a movement the same way that Black Girl Magic has, because everybody wants some of it. They really want to see Black Girl Magic. And I'm like, I really want to see Black boy joy.
Me too.
I want to see Black men feel comfortable in embracing who they are and their duality, because a lot of them don't think they have duality, but I can't even exist without recognizing that there's a feminine and a masculine energy inside me.
Absolutely.
I have to honor them both. It's what provides me a lot of times with fortitudinal strength to do things that I couldn't normally do.
Absolutely.
So I honor that. But at the same time, I need men to see that it's okay to honor the feminine presence in your energy. Absolutely. When you do, you're going to be elevated to a different level of understanding the women around you, understanding the women who've contributed the space to you, and then really elevate that level of respect that you have, because I don't care how people try to flip it or do anything. We all came through a woman.
Absolutely.
Every one of us.
I like to say,
I have a shirt that says, I created, that says mother of all creation.
Yes.
Because that's who we are. Yeah. And women haven't even honored that space in themselves just yet. We're still getting there. Yes. But I feel like if we have the power and have that backing of people saying, you know what, you are the creators of life, we should be honoring you in that space. Yes,
absolutely.
It'll be beautiful.
I agree. And something I like to reflect on is the fact that, one, that every human being is shaped by both masculinity and femininity.
Yep. And
denying that is just lying to yourself.
It is.
And it's just cutting yourself off from full expression. And another thing, when I think about us human beings, I believe that we're created. I believe that we're created by, a source that is bigger and deeper than we can comprehend. And when I think about that, I like to question people who believe in God. And I'm like, and I've had this moment with women. There are women who I've had to be like, do you believe that, we're all created in the image of God? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, so that means that God is also feminine because you're created in the image of God.
Right.
And it's amazing how many times women can be like hung up by that, because not only do men experience and internalize misogyny and patriarchy, but women internalize it too. And so there
Because
can
that's
be
the society that we've been
yes,
groomed in.
yes. And so there can be many times where not only men, but women also internalize this idea that men are a reflection of God very practically, but women somehow just this poof that, women just happen. It's like, no, women also were created in the image and the likeness of God, which means that God too is feminine.
Yes.
That God's nature is also feminine. And so I don't need God to only be man for me. Like God has been, when I lost my mother, God became mother to me many, many, many times. When there were times when I would literally cry and be talking to God like, I need my mama. The Holy Spirit, who I know the Spirit of God to be, would speak to me and speak to me in a way that felt like a mother.
Yes.
My sister has been one of the most truest reflections of God's love for me. And Crystal is a woman.
Yes.
When we were little, Crystal was a
Yes.
girl. And I was able to witness God's love for me through my sister. I knew like if I lose everything, I still got my sister loves me. My sister will protect me. I'm gonna protect my sister. So there was this understanding that I was no more human than my sister. I was no closer to God than my sister. And that helped me to understand that a part of God's nature, as much as it is man, is female, or as much as it is masculine energy, is feminine energy.
Right.
And I believe that it's a part of why I feel like a free human being, is because I understand that. I'm not in denial of that. I welcome that. I welcome femininity in my life. I don't think that, the feminine needs the masculine, but the masculine doesn't need the feminine. I believe the masculine needs the feminine the same way the feminine needs the masculine.
It's balance. It's balance. It's what creates balance in us. And I love that the picture that you just painted, because I think about that all the time with my girls. I'm a girl mom.
Yes.
And so for me to look at my girls and think the only way that they came here is through masculine energy, I'm going, hold on now. That makes zero sense.
Yes.
It doesn't make any sense, because the very essence of who they are for me is the love of God.
Absolutely.
Right? And he gave these girls, these future women, to me because of the love that God embodies for me. So I'm like, okay, this is something that it takes a long time. And a lot of people, I know, they give you the shock look when you're like, okay, so if we got God here and you're created in an image, it's both. So I know that's definitely a revelation. So one more question and I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
But I'm definitely gonna invite you to the Tribe of Dope Black Women so we can have a conversation.
Because
I need my girls to ask you questions. I know they would love to have you.
I would love it.
And there's so much that you have to offer in the spirit of understanding the power behind allyship. You do a lot of affirming. That's very, very important for you. So what is a word, if you could narrow it to just one, that affirms who you are?
Becoming.
I love it. Tell me why.
Becoming, because I realize that I will never reach the end of myself, and that I'm on a constant journey of discovering who I am. And I feel the same way about love. I would just add on to that, like my definition of success changed in my early 20s. It was right around the time my mom was really ill. And then it definitely became this reimagination when she passed away. Because I had to start questioning my entire life. Like, what do I believe? Where am I going? Why do I do what I do? And one of the things that I've come into my understanding of success is not a platform. It's not a stage. It's not arriving to a certain place with a certain group of people. Yeah. Success in my life is I'm able to receive love as it comes, and I'm willing to love freely. That is success to me. And the reason I like that as success in my life is because I know that I will never wrap myself around love. I'll never fully comprehend love. When I'm 96 and I got probably 17 great grandkids, when they come busting through my door, I'm still have to remember how to love.
Yes.
When I'm 67 and I'm like starting to feel my knees ache, I'm gonna have to remember how to get up and still love, my child who wants me to come and check out, some, art gallery they're doing. When somebody offends me on the road when I'm driving, I have to remember love. I never get to the end of that. I never conquer love. And so that helps me to have this understanding of like success for me is going to be a journey that I'll always be on. I'll never arrive at success. I will always be in pursuit of love. And I feel the same way about myself. I understand that if I'm made in the image of God, if God and this creator and this source of all things is saying to me, you know, that I'm a reflection of them, then that means that I have so much to learn about myself that I don't have a final answer when I'm 29. I don't have a final
It's
answer when I'm
infinite.
52. I don't have a final answer when I'm 100. I'll always be learning something about myself. And I feel like I've gotten to a point, at least partially, where I'm willing to go on that journey. I do not need to come at a place of knowing exactly. I don't need to have a definition. I just want to be expressed and I want to discover. So becoming would be my word.
I absolutely love that. I love you and I adore you.
I
I
love
cannot
you
let you
too.
leave here without telling us what projects you have going on, how we
Yes.
can find you on social media. We need to know all the details because, like I said, we are still kicking it to the vibe. We are still listening to We
Yes.
Dream. We need to know what comes next.
So I'm on social media. I only really have Facebook and Instagram. I've been thinking about making a Twitter soon, but my Instagram handle is DayVidya. So it's DayVidya. And on Instagram, I tend to share a lot more of like projects that happen. Facebook, I write and I share thoughts a lot more. But I'm working on a short film with a dear friend of mine. He's directing it about black hair, and it's coming out this month. I don't have the title yet, but I'm the writer for it, and I'm very excited. So I'll be sharing that with like on my Facebook and Instagram. I
I
have a
cannot wait because you
yeah,
know how I feel about black hair.
oh yeah, and I have an EP out called DayVidya. It's a self-titled EP with 5 songs, and you can link to it through my Instagram. I've recorded like 4 podcasts this week. So I'm being featured in different podcasts and different blogs and stuff. And that's beautiful. Like, I don't know why there's just this rush of like people really wanting to hear my thoughts, but I welcome it. So I'm going to be sharing those on my social media. I'm working on a film with a dear friend of mine, a radical friend of mine in Seattle, that I'll be co-starring in this summer. We're going to start filming it. So that's coming probably next year. And I'm working on music constantly. I'm constantly writing. I'm hoping to start working on a book soon. That is just a series of thoughts and essays. So I have a few projects that I'm working on, but Instagram is like the easiest way to access whatever I'm working on. I just got featured in a magazine called Quite All
I
Right.
saw it is
That is
beautiful. Oh
thank
my gosh, it's so
founded
beautiful.
founded by a black woman named Jackie Hammond, based in LA, and they featured me in their first issue, the first volume of their magazine. So I'm honored about that. And you can buy that and read a full depth interview and see a full length 20-minute performance of my EP.
I'll be sure
Um,
to link that in the article so you
yes,
guys can go and
yes,
check it out.
yes. So I have a few things happening, and I'm just constantly creating. I'm constantly questioning myself and posing those questions sometimes, like in my social media spaces, to like have people question with me. And
Yeah.
that's me. That's me right now.
I absolutely love it. Oh my gosh, David, this has been the most therapeutic.
Oh, good. And that's actually something, a random thought. I'm actually really, really, really considering studying psychology. I'm really thinking about studying psychology and becoming a therapist. So I'm starting to work towards that. And I'm working at an organization that I adore called Mackenzie Mack Group, where we
Mhm.
implement equity, and it's led by a black non-binary person in Chicago who's brilliant, Mackenzie Mack. And I get to work as an analyst at this team. And so it's like I'm doing a lot, and I feel good about my life right now.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah.
I love every aspect, and I can tell you that you would definitely be beneficial to the community as a therapist.
Thank
Just
you.
your understanding of self and just who you are creates a space for people to feel comfortable being who they are, and I absolutely love that. I love you so much. I
I
love you
love you
big,
too.
like big, and I'm so honored to just be in this space with you. I can't wait to tap into your new projects and share
Thank
all
you.
of it. I will be downloading the article as soon as we get off, and I'm just honored to share the space. Guys, check him out on social media. Download that EP. You will not be disappointed. There, We Dream is one of my favorite songs. It's that reminder of who we are. It's like the anthem, in my opinion. So I'm so grateful for you. Drop us some comments. Let him know what's going on. Find yourself in love. Find yourself in energy. And by all means, protect that energy at all costs. I love you. And I'm so honored to be in this space. Thank you again, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.